The Galactic Council chambers buzzed with the low hum of translation devices as Ambassador Kethvar of the Zeltharian Empire rose from his crystalline seat. His four eyes glowed with barely contained disdain as he gestured toward the human delegation with one of his 6 arms. Honored council members, Kethvar's voice carried across the vast chamber. We gather today to discuss the humans' application for advanced membership in our galactic community. However, I must voice my strong opposition to this proposal. Sarah Chen, Earth's chief ambassador, sat perfectly still in her simple cloth uniform. Around her, the other human representatives maintained their composure despite the whispers and clicking sounds coming from the hundreds of alien species filling the amphitheater-style chamber. The architecture itself seemed designed to make humans feel small. Towering crystal pillars stretched impossibly high, while holographic displays showed star charts of territories spanning thousands of light-years. The humans, Kethvar continued, his voice dripping with condescension, have barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Their largest vessels are crude metal constructions held together by what they call welding. They still use explosive projectiles as weapons, while we have perfected energy manipulation and matter displacement. Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the assembly. The Velcaran delegation, insectoid beings with gossamer wings, chittered their approval. The floating gas bag creatures known as the Nimari pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that translated roughly to amusement. Their technology is primitive, added Counselor Vexilla of the Andromedans, her mechanical voice synthesized through her cybernetic implants. Our scans of their home system show they still burn fossil fuels on their planet's surface. They have conflicts over resources that we solved millennia ago through stellar engineering. Sarah finally stood, her movement causing a hush to fall over the chamber. At just over 5.5 feet tall, she was dwarfed by most of the alien representatives. Yet something in her bearing commanded attention. Honored Council, she began, her voice clear and steady. We don't dispute that our technology appears primitive compared to yours. We've seen your ships that can bend space-time, your weapons that can disintegrate matter at the molecular level, your cities that float between dimensions. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. But I would ask the Council to consider this. In our brief survey of this galaxy, we've noticed something interesting. Despite all your advanced technology, despite your energy shields and quantum weapons, despite your ability to manipulate the very fabric of reality itself, you all seem to avoid certain sectors of space. The chamber fell silent. Sarah could see the subtle shifts in body language, the way the Zeltharians' eye stalks twitched, how the Andromedan cybernetic components flickered almost imperceptibly. The dead zones, you call them, Sarah continued. Entire systems marked as off-limits. Regions where even your most advanced scout ships refuse to venture. We've studied your star charts, and there are dozens of these areas scattered throughout what you consider civilized space. Kethvar's 4 eyes narrowed. Those regions contain anomalies, spatial distortions. It is simply prudent to avoid them. Anomalies, Sarah repeated thoughtfully. That's an interesting way to describe them. Our primitive sensors detected something else entirely in those regions. She gestured to her aide, who activated a holographic display showing grainy, long-range sensor readings. Life signs, she announced. Massive ones. Moving through space without ships. Entities that seem to exist in the vacuum itself, some of them the size of small moons. The reaction was immediate. The Nimari's bioluminescent patterns shifted to what could only be described as alarm colors. Several of the smaller species began chattering in their native languages, their translation devices struggling to keep up with the rapid, panicked speech. You're talking about the Devourers, whispered Counselor Mexthi of the Aquarian Collective, her gills fluttering with anxiety. The Star Killers, the things that turn entire systems into lifeless void. We prefer not to speak of them, Kethvar said quickly, his earlier arrogance replaced by something approaching fear. There is no need to discuss such unpleasant topics. Sarah smiled, and somehow that simple human expression seemed to unnerve several of the alien dignitaries. Oh, but I think there is every reason to discuss them. You see, we humans have a saying, know your neighbors. And it seems you've been living next door to some very dangerous neighbors for quite some time. She manipulated the holographic display, zooming in on one particular sector. This system here, the Kepler 442 region, your charts mark it as a dead zone, but our long-range, Telescopes detected something fascinating, happening there just 3 months ago. The image resolved into a clearer view showing what appeared to be a massive, organic structure wrapping around a star like some cosmic parasite. Tendrils of living matter extended for millions of kilometers, slowly draining the star's energy. A stellar parasite, breathed Dr. Zilketh, the Council's chief xenobiologist. We lost contact with 3 colonies in that sector over a century ago. We assumed they were destroyed. They were, Sarah confirmed, but not before they transmitted some very interesting data about their attackers. It seems these devourers, as you call them, aren't just mindless forces of destruction. They're intelligent, they're organized, and according to the transmission fragments we've analyzed, they're spreading. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates began shouting in dozens of languages, their translation devices creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. The Velkaran delegation took flight, their wings creating a humming sound that added to the confusion. Sarah waited for the noise to subside before delivering her final point. The question isn't whether humanity deserves membership in your galactic community based on our technology, she said, her voice cutting through the remaining chatter. The question is whether you can afford to keep excluding us. She turned to face the full assembly, her gaze sweeping across hundreds of alien faces. Because while you've been hiding from these monsters, avoiding them, pretending they don't exist, we've been studying them, learning about them. And we've discovered something that might interest you. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the chamber's environmental systems seemed to quiet, as if the building itself was holding its breath. We know how to kill them, Sarah said simply. The implications of those 6 words hit the assembly like a physical blow. Advanced civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia suddenly found themselves staring at these supposedly primitive humans with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. Kethvar's arrogance had completely evaporated. That's impossible. The Devourers are beyond physical harm. They exist partially outside normal space-time. Our most powerful weapons pass through them like they're not even there. Sarah's smile widened. That's because you're thinking like civilized beings. You're trying to fight them with technology, with science, with logic. She paused dramatically. But sometimes the most effective approach is the most primitive one. The emergency session convened just 6 hours after Sarah's bombshell announcement. The Galactic Council's most senior members gathered in a smaller, more secure chamber deep within the station's core. Gone were the ceremonial robes and formal protocols. This was a war council, though none would admit it openly. Commander Marcus Webb stood beside a holographic tactical display, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of star charts. Unlike the other human delegates, Webb wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's Deep Space Defense Force, his chest bearing medals from conflicts most of the galaxy had never heard of. The entity you're looking at, Webb began, manipulating the display to show a writhing mass of dark matter, is what we've designated as a Class 7 Void Leviathan. Our xenobiology teams estimate it's approximately 14,000 years old and has consumed the life energy of at least 47 star systems. The assembled delegates stared in horrified fascination at the creature. Its body defied conventional understanding, part energy, part matter, existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Tentacles of pure entropy stretched across light years, while its core pulsed with stolen stellar fire. How do you know this? Demanded High Admiral Cassiandra of the Centauran Defense Fleet. Her species had evolved from predatory cat-like creatures, and her enhanced senses allowed her to detect the subtle changes in the human's biochemistry. The slight elevation in heart rate, the barely perceptible increase in adrenaline that indicated these weren't theoretical discussions for them. Because we've been hunting one for the past 18 months, Webb replied matter-of-factly. The statement hit the chamber like a thunderbolt. Several delegates began speaking at once, their voices overlapping in a chaos of disbelief and alarm. Hunting? Counselor Mexthi's aquatic features had gone pale. You mean you've deliberately sought out one of these creatures? Not just sought out, Sarah interjected, stepping forward. We've been tracking it, studying its behavior patterns, learning its weaknesses. The entity has been moving through the outer rim of what you call the terminus sector, consuming dead systems and growing stronger. Webb changed the display to show a detailed map of ship movements over the past year and a half. Red dots marked the Leviathan's position at various times, while blue lines showed the paths of human vessels, always following, always watching, staying just outside the creature's sensory range. "This is madness," breathed Dr. Zilketh. "Your ships, they're so close to it. How did your crews survive the psychic emanations alone?" "That's where our primitive nature becomes an advantage," Webb explained. "Your species have evolved beyond what you consider base emotions, fear, anger, hatred. You've transcended those feelings through technology and genetic enhancement. But those emotions? They're exactly what you need to resist, avoid Leviathan's influence." He pulled up medical scans showing human brain activity. "When our crews encounter the creature's psychic attacks, their fear response activates. Ancient survival instincts kick in. Instead of being overwhelmed by the cosmic horror of what they're seeing, they get angry. And anger, it turns out, is like psychic armor against these things." The Andromedan representative Vexilla processed this information through her cybernetic implants. "You're saying that emotional volatility is actually protective?" "More than protective," Sarah added. "It's essential. The Leviathans feed on despair, on the resignation that comes when a species realizes it's facing something beyond their understanding. But humans, we don't accept that something can't be killed. We might not understand it, we might be terrified of it, but our first instinct is still to figure out how to fight it." Webb manipulated the display again, showing detailed scanner readings of the Leviathan's anatomy. 18 months of observation have taught us several key facts. First, these creatures aren't truly immortal. They're incredibly old and nearly indestructible, but they can be damaged. Second, they're not as intelligent as you think. They're cunning, yes, but they operate on instinct. They're essentially cosmic predators. And third, prompted High Admiral Cassandra, her predatory instincts clearly engaged despite herself. Third, Webb smiled grimly, they can be baited. The humans began explaining their plan, and with each detail, the assembled aliens grew more horrified and more fascinated in equal measure. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't sophisticated, it was brutal, direct, and utterly ruthless. "You want to use your own colonies as bait," Counselor Vexilla stated, her mechanical voice somehow conveying disbelief. "Evacuated colonies," Sarah corrected. "We've identified several systems in the creature's projected path. We'll set up what appear to be thriving settlements, complete with energy signatures that will attract the Leviathan when it arrives to feed. We spring the trap," Webb finished. "We've been building specialized vessels for this mission. Ships designed not for exploration or even warfare as you understand it, but for one specific purpose, killing something that shouldn't be able to die." The display shifted to show schematics of human ships unlike anything in the galactic databases. They were ugly, utilitarian vessels bristling with weapons that seemed archaic by galactic standards, kinetic projectiles, nuclear warheads, and something labeled simply as quantum venom. These weapons, Dr. Zilketh studied the schematics. With growing amazement, they're designed to cause maximum suffering rather than clean destruction. "Exactly," Webb confirmed. "Your energy weapons are designed to be humane, to minimize suffering even in warfare. But the Void Leviathans aren't sapient beings deserving of mercy. They're cosmic parasites. And sometimes, the best way to kill a parasite is to make the host environment toxic to it." He highlighted the quantum venom delivery systems. "These weapons don't just damage the creature's physical form, they introduce chaotic quantum fluctuations into its energy matrix. Essentially, we're giving it the equivalent of cosmic food poisoning." "But how do you get close enough to deploy these weapons?" asked Cassandra. "Our most advanced shielding technology can't protect against the Leviathan's entropy field." "We don't use shields," Webb replied simply. "We use expendable crews." The silence that followed was deafening. The concept seemed to physically pain several of the alien delegates. "Volunteers," Sarah clarified quickly. "Every human on those ships knows exactly what they're signing up for. We call them the Berserker Corp. Crews who go into battle knowing they probably won't come back but determined to hurt the enemy as much as possible before they die." "This is barbaric," whispered Mexthi. Your people willingly sacrifice themselves? Our people choose to sacrifice themselves, Webb corrected. There's a difference. Every crew member signs up knowing the odds. They do it because they understand that sometimes civilization survives only because someone is willing to stand between it and the monsters. He changed the display one final time, showing a tactical simulation of the proposed battle. Dozens of human ships swarmed around the massive Leviathan like angry insects, each one detonating their quantum venom payload before being consumed by the creature's defenses. The beautiful thing about this plan, Webb continued, is that it doesn't rely on any one ship surviving. Each vessel carries enough quantum venom to weaken the creature. After enough successful attacks, its dimensional stability will collapse, and it will die. And if it doesn't work? Asked Cassandra. Webb's expression became stone-cold serious. Then we try again, and again, until either we kill it, or there are no more humans left to make the attempt. But that's the thing about humanity. We're really, really good at holding grudges. And we absolutely refuse to let monsters win. The Zarian system had been beautiful once. 3 habitable worlds orbiting a stable yellow star, with asteroid belts rich in rare minerals and gas giants perfect for fuel harvesting. Now it served as the killing ground for humanity's most audacious plan. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the HSS Ragnarok, watching the final preparations through the viewport. Around her ship, the Berserker Corps fleet had assembled, 47 vessels of various sizes, all painted matte black to reduce their visibility against the void. Each ship bore the same symbol, a human skull surrounded by stars, with the words "Death Before Dishonor" inscribed in a dozen Earth languages. Quantum venom warheads are loaded and armed. Captain, reported Lieutenant Chen from the weapons station. Despite sharing a surname with the ambassador, he was no relation, just one of the billions of humans who had volunteered when word of the mission spread through Earth's colonies. All ships report ready for operation, added Commander Torres from communications. The decoy colonies are broadcasting at full power. Energy signatures show thriving populations of approximately 50,000 humans per world. Of course, the colonies were empty except for automated systems, but the Void Leviathan wouldn't know that until it arrived. The creature would sense what appeared to be a feast of human life energy and come running. Estimated time until target arrival? Vasquez asked. Long-range sensors detect spatial distortions approaching from the outer system. The Leviathan should reach Zirian Prime in approximately 4 hours, reported the sensor operator. Vasquez nodded and activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Ragnarok Actual. We are go for Operation Deathblow. Remember your training, remember why we're here, and remember that today we make history, whether the galaxy considers us primitive or not. Today we show them what human determination looks like. 46 other ships acknowledged, their captains' voices carrying mixtures of fear, excitement, and grim determination. These weren't the elite of humanity. They were volunteers from every walk of life. Farmers from the agricultural worlds, miners from the asteroid belts, scientists from the research stations, even former criminals looking for redemption. What united them was simple. They all refused to live in a universe where monsters could hunt intelligent life without consequence. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council's observation chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched through long-range sensors as the human fleet prepared for battle. The chamber was silent, filled with a mixture of morbid curiosity and genuine concern for the seemingly doomed humans. They're actually going through with it, murmured Dr. Zilketh, his scientific mind fascinated despite his moral objections. 47 ships against a creature that has devoured star systems. Ambassador Kethvar, his earlier arrogance completely gone, stared at the tactical display with something approaching awe. I've seen the aftermath of Void Leviathan attacks. Entire civilizations reduced to lifeless rock. And these humans think they can kill one with crude weapons and determination. Perhaps that's exactly what it takes, said High Admiral Cassandra quietly. Her predatory instincts recognized something in the human battle plan that the others missed. Sometimes the most sophisticated hunter is defeated by the most primitive trap. On the Ragnarok's bridge, alarms began sounding as sensors detected the approaching entity. The main display showed a distortion in space itself, reality seeming to bend and twist as the Void Leviathan emerged from hyperspace. The creature was even more terrifying in person than in the recordings. Its body defied easy description, part living shadow, part corrupted starlight, part nightmare made manifest. Tendrils of pure entropy stretched for thousands of kilometers, while its core pulsed with the stolen energy of dead civilizations. Where it moved, space itself seemed to decay, stars flickering and dimming in its presence. "Jesus Christ," whispered someone on the bridge. It's beautiful." In a horrible way. And it was. The Leviathan possessed an alien majesty that triggered both terror and wonder in the human observers. Several crew members had to look away as waves of psychic pressure washed over the fleet, carrying whispers of cosmic insignificance and the futility of resistance. "Steady, people," Vasquez commanded, feeling the creature's influence trying to seep into her mind. "Remember your training. Fear is normal. Despair is what kills you. Channel that fear into anger, and use that anger to focus." The technique had been developed specifically for this mission. Human psychologists had discovered that the Leviathan's psychic attacks could be resisted by embracing, rather than fighting, their emotional responses. Instead of trying to remain calm, the crews had been trained to get angry, to focus their terror into rage, their helplessness into determination. "Target is approaching the first decoy colony," reported sensors. It's feeding. The energy signatures are being drained." On the display, they watched as the Leviathan settled over Xerion Prime like a cosmic vulture, its feeding appendages extended down toward the planet's surface, seeking the life energy it craved. When it found only empty buildings and automated systems, its roar of frustration was audible across multiple dimensions. "It knows it's been tricked," Torres observed. "Look at the aggression patterns." The creature had gone from methodical feeding to violent thrashing. Its tentacles lashed out at the planet's surface, carving massive canyons and turning oceans to steam. But more importantly, it was distracted, focused entirely on the world below it. "All ships, this is your moment," Vasquez broadcast. "Remember, we're not trying to win clean. We're trying to hurt this thing as much as possible before it kills us. Make every shot count." The Berserker Corps fleet moved in perfect coordination, each ship following a carefully planned attack vector. They came from all directions at once, their engines burning at maximum output, closing distance faster than the Leviathan could respond. The first ship to reach attack range was the HSS Defiance, a converted mining vessel crewed by volunteers from the Tau Ceti colonies. Captain Morrison's voice crackled over the communication as his ship dove toward the creature's core. "Quantum venom deployed. Impact in 3, 2, 1. The warhead struck the Leviathan's central mass and detonated, not with the clean destruction of energy weapons, but with a chaotic explosion that introduced random quantum fluctuations into the creature's dimensional matrix. The effect was immediate. The Leviathan's perfect form began to waver, sections of its body flickering between dimensions as its quantum stability was compromised. The creature's scream of pain and rage echoed across space, a sound that made several of the observing aliens physically ill. But on the human ships, the crews felt only grim satisfaction. "Target wounded. Repeat, target shows significant damage to quantum coherence," shouted the sensor operator as the Defiance was consumed by the Leviathan's counterattack. "One down, 46 to go." The second ship, the HSS Vengeance, was already making its attack run, then the third, the fourth, each one delivering its payload before being destroyed by the increasingly frantic creature. With each successful strike, the Leviathan's form became more unstable, its movements less coordinated. "It's working," breathed Dr. Zilketh from the observation chamber. "By the eternal void, it's actually working." But the cost was terrible. Ship after ship died in flares of twisted space-time. As the Leviathan fought back with increasing desperation, the creature was learning, adapting its defenses, making each subsequent attack more difficult. By the time the 20th ship made its run, the Leviathan had begun to anticipate their attack patterns. The HSS Liberty barely managed to deploy its payload before being caught in an entropy field that aged the ship 10,000 years in the span of seconds. "Captain," reported Chen from Weapons Control, "we're losing too many ships too quickly. At this rate, we won't have enough vessels left for a killing blow." Vasquez studied the tactical display, watching the creature's death throes. The Leviathan was badly wounded, its dimensional stability compromised, its feeding apparatus partially severed, its psychic emanations reduced to chaotic static. But it was still alive, still dangerous. Then we change tactics, she decided. All remaining ships, concentrate your fire on the dimensional anchor points. If we can't kill it outright, we'll banish it to somewhere it can't hurt anyone. It was a desperate gamble, but it was their only chance. The remaining 27 ships of the Berserker Corps reformed their attack pattern as the wounded Void Leviathan writhed in the ruins of Xerion Prime. The creature's form had become increasingly unstable, sections of its body phasing in and out of reality like a broken hologram. Dark ichor. If something composed of corrupted spacetime could be said to bleed, leaked from the quantum wounds inflicted by the human weapons, Captain Vasquez watched the tactical display with growing hope and despair in equal measure. Hope, because their insane plan was actually working. Despair, because she could see the cost written in the names of the ships that no longer responded to communications. Captain, the creature is adapting faster than our projections indicated, reported Lieutenant Chen. It's learned to predict our attack vectors. The last 3 ships barely got within firing range before being destroyed. On the observation deck of the Galactic Council Station, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence as the battle unfolded. What they were witnessing shouldn't have been possible. A creature that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was being systematically dismantled by beings they had dismissed as primitive. How are they maintaining coherence under that psychic assault? Wondered Counselor Vexilla, her cybernetic implants struggling to process the quantum data streaming from the battle site. Dr. Zilketh was running continuous scans of the human crews, his instruments detecting something unprecedented. Their neurochemistry, it's extraordinary. Instead of the typical fear responses we see in other species, their brains are producing massive amounts of adrenaline, dopamine, and something I've never seen before. A compound that seems to actively resist psychic intrusion. What is it? Asked High Admiral Kessiandra. I believe they call it spite, the xenobiologist replied with something approaching wonder. Back in the battle zone, Captain Vasquez was implementing the most desperate part of their plan. All ships prepare for synchronized strike pattern Omega. We're going to hit every dimensional anchor point simultaneously. Captain, that means flying directly into the creature's kill zone, Commander Torres pointed out. None of us will survive the approach. I know, Vasquez replied simply. But if we can destabilize enough anchor points at once, the quantum cascade should tear the creature apart from the inside. It's our only shot at a clean kill. The remaining ships spread out in a perfect sphere around the Leviathan, each one targeting a different dimensional anchor, the quantum structures that allowed the creature to exist partially outside normal spacetime. It was a suicide run in the truest sense, requiring each crew to maintain course directly into the teeth of the monster's defenses. Remember why we're here, Vasquez broadcast to the fleet. Every sentient being in this galaxy deserves to live free from the fear of these creatures. Today we make sure that happens. Today we show the universe that humans don't back down from monsters. The first ship to make its run was the HSS Indomitable, crewed by volunteers from Mars Colony. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channel as his ship accelerated toward its target. For Earth, for humanity, for everyone who comes after us. The ship's quantum venom warhead struck true, detonating directly against one of the creature's major anchor points. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. That section of the Leviathan's body began to collapse in on itself, reality reasserting its dominance over the alien physics that allowed the creature to exist. The Leviathan's scream of pain was audible across multiple dimensions, a sound that shattered crystal formations on planets light years away. But instead of deterring the remaining human crews, it seemed to energize them. Target's quantum coherence dropping to 60%, reported the sensor operator on the Ragnarok. The anchor points are failing. Ship after ship made their final runs, each one striking home before being consumed by the creature's desperate counterattacks. The HSS Retribution, crewed by former prisoners seeking redemption. The HSS Phoenix carrying volunteers from the outer colonies. The HSS Determination, with a crew of scientists who had devoted their lives to studying these creatures. Each sacrifice weakened the Leviathan further, its form becoming increasingly chaotic as its dimensional stability collapsed. But the creature was far from helpless. Its death throes were devastating to anything within light years. Stellar bodies shifted in their orbits and the very fabric of space-time rippled with each convulsion. Quantum coherence at 40% and falling. Chen reported as another ship completed its mission. But Captain, we're running out of vessels. There are still 7 anchor points that haven't been targeted. Vasquez looked at the tactical display, counting the remaining ships. 14 vessels left, 7 targets remaining. The mathematics were stark. If they distributed their remaining forces evenly, some anchor points might survive, allowing the creature to eventually regenerate. All ships except Ragnarok, Fury, Justice, Vigilant, Crusader, Reaper, and Salvation concentrate all remaining fire on anchor points Alpha through Echo. Maximum effort, no holding back. The 7 designated ships held back while their companions made the final desperate assault. Ship after ship dove into the creature's kill zone, their crews screaming defiance as they delivered their payloads. The HSS Courage, the HSS Honor, the HSS Glory, each name a testament to human idealism in the face of cosmic horror. Anchor points Alpha through Echo neutralized. Reported sensors as the last of the volunteer ships completed their missions. Quantum coherence at 22%. The Leviathan was dying but slowly. Its remaining dimensional anchors were overloaded, struggling to maintain the creature's existence as vast sections of its body collapsed into normal space-time. But a wounded cosmic predator was still unimaginably dangerous. This is it, Vasquez announced to the 7 remaining ships. Final attack pattern. We hit the last anchor point simultaneously, then get clear if we can. If we can't. She paused, thinking of her daughter back on Earth. Of all the children throughout the galaxy who would sleep safer if this mission succeeded. If we can't, then we make damn sure this thing dies with us. The 7 ships formed up in perfect formation and began their final approach. The Leviathan, sensing its approaching doom, lashed out with every weapon at its disposal. Entropy fields aged entire sections of the human ships. Gravity weapons tried to crush their hulls, and psychic attacks attempted to drive the crews insane with cosmic despair. But the humans pressed on, their primitive emotions serving as armor against the creature's sophisticated attacks. Where fear would have paralyzed a more advanced species, human stubbornness kept them flying. Where despair would have broken a more enlightened mind, human anger sustained them. Target lock acquired, shouted Chen as the Ragnarok closed on its designated anchor point. Quantum venom armed and ready. Around them, the other 6 ships were making their own final approaches. The HSS Fury, commanded by Captain Zhang, a former asteroid miner. The HSS Justice, led by Captain Okafor, who had lost her family to a Leviathan attack on the Outer Rim. The HSS Vigilant with Captain Petrov, a veteran of a dozen impossible battles. Fire, Vasquez commanded. 7 quantum venom warheads struck their targets in perfect synchronization. The effect was everything the humans had hoped for and more. The creature's remaining dimensional anchors collapsed simultaneously, creating a quantum cascade that rippled through the Leviathan's entire structure. The death scream of a void Leviathan was something no living being had ever heard before. It echoed across dimensions, a sound of pure agony as a creature older than most stars was finally, definitively killed. In the observation chamber, the alien representatives stared in shock as their sensors registered the impossible, the complete cessation of the Leviathan's quantum signature. It's dead, whispered Dr. Zilketh. They actually killed it, but the victory had come at a terrible price. Of the 7 ships that made the final attack, only 3 survived the creature's death throes. The Ragnarok, heavily damaged but still functional, the Fury, with half her crew casualties but her engines still running, and the Justice, battered but determined to limp home. 4 ships out of 47. 91% casualties. By any civilized standard, it was a catastrophic defeat, but by human standards, it was a victory. The monster was dead, and some of them had lived to tell about it. The medical bay of the Galactic Council Station had never treated humans before. Dr. Veltar, the station's chief medical officer, found himself struggling to understand the physiology of the survivors from the Berserker Corps. Captain Vasquez lay on one of his biobeds, her body showing signs of massive quantum radiation exposure, yet somehow she remained conscious and alert. Your cellular structure should have collapsed hours ago, Dr. Veltar muttered, his tentacles dancing over the medical scanners. The quantum poisoning alone should have killed you, yet your readings are actually improving. Vasquez managed a weak smile. Doc, if there's one thing you'll learn about humans, it's that we're too stubborn to die when we're supposed to. The past 72 hours had been a whirlwind of activity aboard the council station. News of the Leviathan's death had spread through the galaxy faster than light-speed communication, carried by quantum resonance across the dimensional barriers. For the first time in recorded history, a void Leviathan had been completely destroyed, its quantum signature erased from existence. In the main council chambers, emergency sessions had been running continuously. Representatives from dozens of species debated the implications of what they had witnessed. The humans had done more than kill a monster. They had shattered fundamental assumptions about what was possible. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the assembled delegates, no longer the dismissed representative of a primitive species, but someone whose words carried the weight of unprecedented achievement. The chamber was packed beyond capacity, with additional delegates attending via holographic projection from across the galaxy. The question before us, Sarah began, is not whether humanity deserves membership in the galactic community. The question is whether the galactic community is prepared to accept what humanity represents. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The arrogance that had characterized the initial meetings was gone, replaced by a mixture of awe, fear, and desperate curiosity. Councillor Mexthi of the Aquarian Collective spoke first. What you accomplished was extraordinary, but the cost, 91% casualties. Such losses would be considered genocidal by our standards. By your standards, Sarah agreed, but humanity operates by different standards. We measure victory not by who survives, but by whether the objective is achieved. 44 ships and their crews gave their lives to kill one monster, but that one monster would have eventually consumed millions of sentient beings across dozens of worlds. She activated a holographic display showing the Leviathan's projected expansion path. Red zones marked systems that would have fallen within the next century, each one representing billions of potential victims. Every human who died in that battle knew exactly what they were trading their life for, Sarah continued. They weren't forced into sacrifice, they chose it. Because sometimes the arithmetic of survival requires someone to pay a price that civilized beings find unacceptable. High Admiral Cassandra leaned forward in her seat. You speak of this as if it's a repeatable strategy. Are you suggesting humanity could kill other Leviathans? We're not suggesting it, Sarah replied. We're promising it. Our analysis indicates there are at least 17 more void Leviathans in this galaxy, possibly more in distant regions. Each one is a sword hanging over every civilized world. You've spent millennia avoiding them, working around them, pretending they don't exist. We're offering to remove that threat permanently. The chamber erupted in excited chatter. For advanced civilizations that had accepted the Leviathans as an unchangeable fact of existence, the possibility of actually eliminating them was revolutionary. Ambassador Kethvar, his earlier condescension replaced by grudging respect, stood to address the chamber. Even if we accept that humans can kill these creatures, the cost in lives would be staggering. 17 Leviathans would require approximately 800 ships and their crews, Sarah completed. We've already identified the volunteers. The Berserker Corps is expanding. Word of what happened at Zirion has spread through human space, and applications are pouring in faster than we can process them. Dr. Zilketh accessed his datapad, running calculations. 800 ships. That's roughly 16,000 human lives. Your species would accept such casualties. Doctor, let me tell you something about humanity that your sociological profiles might have missed, Sarah said, her voice carrying a quiet intensity. We're not just willing to die to protect others, we consider it an honor. Every human who volunteers for the Berserker Corps understands that they're part of something bigger than themselves. She pulled up communication logs from Earth and the human colonies. In the past 3 days, we've received over 50,000 applications to join the Corps. Veterans, civilians, scientists, even retired grandparents who want to contribute something meaningful before they die naturally. Do you know what the most common statement in these applications is? The chamber waited in silence. I want my life to matter. That's what drives us. Not glory, not conquest, not even survival. Just the knowledge that our existence serves a purpose. Meanwhile, in the medical bay, Captain Vasquez was receiving visitors. The 3 surviving captains from the Zirion battle had become celebrities throughout the galaxy, their story spreading through news networks and data streams. But their most important visitor was a small delegation of alien military officers who had come seeking something unprecedented. Captain, said Commander Kilseth of the Rigel Defense Force, My government has authorized me to make a formal request. We want to learn your tactics. Our worlds lie in the path of one of the remaining Leviathans, and our conventional defenses would be useless. Captain Zhang of the HSS Fury, her arm in a biocast but her spirit unbroken, looked up from her recovery bed. Commander, you have to understand, our tactics aren't just about weapons and strategy. They're about mindset. Your people would have to learn to think like humans. What does that mean? Asked Lieutenant Commander Vexkill of the Andromedan Navy. It means accepting that some problems can't be solved cleanly, Captain Okafor of the HSS Justice explained from her own bed. Your species fights wars to minimize casualties, to achieve objectives with maximum efficiency. We fight wars to win regardless of cost. Vasquez struggled to sit up, Dr. Veltar fussing over her with his tentacles. But more than that, it means accepting that sometimes the right thing to do is the brutal thing to do. Those Leviathans aren't just dangerous. They're evil in the purest sense. They exist only to consume and destroy. Fighting them requires a willingness to be equally ruthless. We could teach your people the technical aspects, Zhang added. Quantum venom synthesis, dimensional anchor targeting, psychic resistance techniques. But the core of what makes it work, the willingness to fly into certain death for a slim chance of victory, that's not something that can be taught. It has to be chosen. Commander Kilseth processed this information, his crystalline features reflecting the medical bay's lights. And if we choose this path, if we ask our people to make such sacrifices, then you'll save your worlds, Okafor replied simply. And you'll learn something about yourselves that you never knew before. You'll learn what you're truly willing to fight for. Back in the council chambers, the debate had evolved beyond simple membership questions. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations were grappling with concepts that challenged their fundamental understanding of warfare. Sacrifice and survival. The humans offer us a solution to the Leviathan problem, summarized Counselor Vexilla. But implementing that solution requires us to adopt human methods. Methods that our societies would consider barbaric. Is barbarism always wrong if it serves a greater good? Asked Dr. Zilketh, his scientific mind struggling with the ethical implications. These humans have achieved something we thought impossible, but at a cost that violates every principle of civilized warfare. Sarah stepped forward to address this concern directly. Counselors, you're thinking of this in terms of civilization versus barbarism. But there's a third category you're not considering: necessity. Sometimes the most civilized action is to do the uncivilized thing. She gestured to the tactical displays still showing the dead Leviathan's remains. You've had the luxury of avoiding these creatures because your territory is vast and they move slowly. But they're still out there, still growing, still consuming. Eventually, they would have reached your core worlds. When that happened, all your civilization, all your advanced ethics, all your sophisticated technology would have meant nothing. So what are you proposing? Asked High Admiral Cassandra. Partnership, Sarah replied. Not membership, not subordination, partnership. Your technology combined with our tactics, your resources combined with our willingness to use them. Together we can make this galaxy safe for everyone. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were being offered not just a solution to an ancient threat, but a fundamental change in how galactic civilization approached existential dangers. And if we refuse? Asked Ambassador Kethvar quietly. Sarah's smile was small but absolutely unwavering. Then humanity will handle the problem ourselves. All 17 Leviathans one by one until they're all dead. Because that's what we do, we kill monsters whether anyone helps us or not. 5 years after the Battle of Xerion, the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Human Galactic Defense Initiative had become the most effective military force in known space, with mixed crews of humans and aliens working together to hunt down the remaining void Leviathans. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the HGDI flagship Determination, watching the final battle preparations in the Andromeda sector. The ship itself was a testament to what cooperation could achieve. Human tactical thinking combined with alien technology, resulting in vessels that were both more survivable and more lethal than anything either species could have built alone. Final target confirmed, reported Commander Velketh, the Rigel officer who served as Chen's tactical advisor. His species had adapted to human military thinking faster than anyone expected, their crystalline minds proving excellent at the kind of calculated brutality required for Leviathan hunting. Designation: Omega-class Void Leviathan, approximately 20,000 years old, responsible for the consumption of at least 67 star systems. Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. This was the last one, the 17th and final Void Leviathan in the galaxy. Its destruction would mark the end of a threat that had terrorized civilized space for millennia. The fleet arrayed against it was unlike anything that had existed at Xerion. 150 ships, crewed by volunteers from 43 different species, all trained in human tactics but equipped with the best technology the galaxy could provide. They had quantum venom weapons that were more efficient, shields that could partially resist entropy fields, and communication systems that could maintain contact even through dimensional distortions. More importantly, they had learned to think like humans when it mattered. Captain Morrison of the HSS Defiance du Sioux reporting ready for combat, came a familiar voice over the communication system. The original Defiance had been destroyed at Xerion, but humanity had a tradition of naming new ships after those lost in battle. Morrison was the nephew of the original captain, volunteering to follow in his uncle's footsteps. Andromedan heavy cruiser synthesis ready for engagement, reported Captain Vexcara, her cybernetic voice carrying none of the cold calculation it once had. The Andromedans had discovered that their mechanical nature actually made them excellent at the emotionless brutality required for close-range Leviathan combat. Ship after ship reported in, representing a coalition that would have been impossible 5 years earlier. The Aquarian Collective had contributed their expertise in dimensional physics. The Zentarians provided advanced shielding technology. Even the proud Zeltharians had swallowed their arrogance and contributed their most advanced vessels to the cause. But at the heart of every mixed crew was at least one human, because the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Advanced technology and sophisticated tactics were useless without the primitive human willingness to actually use them. "Admiral," reported the sensor operator. "Target is emerging from hyperspace. Distance, 5 astronomical units and closing." The Omega-class Leviathan was the largest they had ever encountered, its body stretching across space like a malignant constellation. Where the creature at Xerion had been terrifying, this one was apocalyptic, a living void that seemed to devour light itself. Its presence caused reality to ripple, stars to flicker, and space-time to bend in impossible ways. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast to the fleet. 5 years ago, humanity was considered too primitive to join the galactic community. Today, we lead the largest joint military operation in galactic history. Today, we finish what we started at Xerion. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers, battle cries, and expressions of determination in dozens of languages. The human crews shouted, "Remember Xerion," while the Rigel contingent sang their traditional war hymns. Even the normally stoic Andromedans transmitted binary expressions of readiness. "Commence attack pattern Omega," Chen ordered. "All ships, maximum aggression. Let's send this thing back to whatever hell spawned it." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Where Xerion had been a desperate sacrifice play, this was a coordinated slaughter. The mixed crews worked with lethal efficiency, human tactical instincts guided by alien precision, and enhanced by technologies that made survival possible. The Aquarian vessels used their dimensional expertise to phase in and out of reality, striking the Leviathan's anchor points before it could respond. The Andromedan ships absorbed massive damage with their quantum-hardened hulls, delivering payload after payload of enhanced venom weapons. The human ships did what they did best, flew straight into the teeth of the monster's defenses, their crews screaming defiance as they delivered killing blows. But this time, most of them survived to celebrate. Target's quantum coherence dropping below critical thresholds, reported sensors as the Leviathan began its death throes. Dimensional anchors failing across the spectrum. The creature's final scream echoed across multiple dimensions, but this time, it was met not with horror, but with satisfaction. The galaxy's defenders had learned to take pleasure in the sound of a dying monster. When the last echoes faded and the threat boards showed clear across all spectrums, a cheer went up from the entire fleet that could probably be heard on distant planets. "Mission accomplished," Chen announced. The last void Leviathan is dead. The galaxy is free. But even as the fleet celebrated, Chen was already thinking about the future. The Leviathans were gone, but they had been just one threat among many. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers that advanced civilizations preferred to avoid rather than confront. Humanity, however, had never been good at avoiding anything. 6 months later, Chen found herself back in the Galactic Council chambers, but this time as an equal partner, rather than a supplicant. The chamber had been expanded to accommodate representatives from dozens of new species who had joined the galactic community, their worlds now safe from the Leviathan threat. The Human Galactic Defense Initiative has proven extraordinarily effective, reported Dr. Zilketh, now serving as the scientific advisor to the Joint Military Command. Not only have we eliminated the Void Leviathan threat, but our exploration fleets have mapped 17 new star systems previously considered too dangerous to approach. The success had been total. With the Leviathans gone, entire regions of space that had been no-go zones for millennia were now open for exploration and colonization. Trade routes that had been forced to take dangerous detours could now travel direct paths. Most importantly, children throughout the galaxy could grow up without the ancient fear of cosmic predators lurking in the dark between stars. But perhaps more significant than our military victories, Chen addressed the assembly, is what we've learned about ourselves. Every species in this chamber has discovered capabilities they didn't know they possessed when they stopped thinking like victims and started thinking like predators. She was right. The Rigel had learned that their crystal matrices could be weaponized in ways their peaceful culture had never imagined. The Aquarians had discovered that their dimensional abilities made them nearly unstoppable infiltrators. Even the gentle Nimari had found that their bioluminescent communication could be used to coordinate attacks across vast distances instantaneously. The question now, continued Ambassador Kethavar, his tone completely different from their first meeting, is what we do with these capabilities. The Leviathans are gone, but long-range sensors have detected other threats in distant galaxies. Chen smiled, and somehow that simple human expression had become reassuring rather than unnerving to the alien delegates. That's simple. We do what humans have always done when faced with monsters. We hunt them down and kill them. She activated a holographic display showing deep space scanner readings from the edge of the galaxy, the devourer swarms in the Magellanic clouds, the entropy storms near the galactic core, the reality parasites in the dark matter regions. For too long, advanced civilizations have treated these as natural disasters to be avoided. And you propose? Asked High Admiral Cassandra, though her predatory instincts had already guessed the answer. We treat them as problems to be solved, Chen replied. Permanently. The chamber buzzed with excitement. 5 years ago, such a proposal would have been considered insane. Now, with the proof of Xerion and 17 subsequent victories, it seemed not just possible, but inevitable. There's one thing you should understand about humanity, Chen concluded, addressing the full assembly. We don't just refuse to let monsters win, we refuse to let them exist. And now that we've taught the galaxy how to think like us, there's nowhere in the universe that's safe for things that prey on intelligent life. She paused, letting her words sink in before delivering the final promise that would define the galaxy's future. They called us primitive, because we still fought our monsters instead of hiding from them. But we've learned something that advanced civilizations forgot. Sometimes the most sophisticated response to a problem is the primitive one. Sometimes the answer isn't to build better defenses or find cleverer ways to avoid danger. Her smile widened, carrying the promise of humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy.